What's the most WTF way you've seen someone brag about being rich? There's a guy in my group who can't stop talking about how awesome it is that his rich mom pays for everything for him. The funniest thing to watch is when he's hitting on our waitress, because he always hits on the waitress every time we go out and the check comes, and he proudly tells her that his bill is going on his mom's credit card. Oh yeah, dude, you're really going to impress her with that one. In middle school I knew a kid who claimed he was so rich that raccoons didn't come on his property. It wasn't that they paid for fences or anything. No, the raccoons just knew. TLD, our kid claimed raccoons only visit the poor. My dad had a better story than any I have. Basically, when he was growing up, one kid he went to school with and lived near was rich. This kid wasn't averse to announcing it too, but his favorite way of displaying it was with new trinkets toys. So one day, he emerges into daylight with a brand new and quite fancy skateboard. This is early on, when skateboards weren't yet associated with names like Tony Hawk and so on. After trying for all but 30-40 minutes and not being able to land a single trick, the douche gets fed up, picks up the skateboard, and hurls it into a wooded area off the road. As he does this, he screams, "Fight for it, peasants." I'm so pissed at my mom. I mean, it's my 16th birthday, not hers. I should be able to get the BMW if I want it. She just keeps pushing the Mercedes on me though. I am going to be so mad if my birthday rolls around and the Mercedes is out front. It felt like I was in a MTV show. I wanted to throw up. Scanning receipts for some very expensive purchases and making an album of all of them on Facebook. I had a guy come into the GameStop I used to work at that would tell stories about throwing money off balconies. He went to buy this game once, and after I told him the total, he pulled out an absurd wad of 100s and counted them all out on my counter. After reaching $7,000, he then asks, "Wait, how much was it again?" Blank stare. $18. Duck you. Tesh. I was bumped up to first class on my way home from a trip. I've never been in first class and assumed it was just better seats and food options, but no. I was suddenly treated differently, as if I had suddenly become more important than everyone else on the plane. I especially remember at the end of the flight when first class was unloading. My bags were still in the back of the plane, so I didn't get up right away and was planning on waiting for everyone to get off before me. The flight attendants offered to make everyone make way for me to get to the back of the plane, get my bags, and get off. I told her that I didn't want to inconvenience everyone, and she responded, "Maybe they are the ones inconveniencing you." This statement took me by surprise. Is this really the way rich people think? Perhaps not the most WTF story ever, but it was shocking for me. Every time someone says anything to my cousin about her stuff, she has to make a point to tell you how much it costs. For example, "You, wow, nice house." My cousin, "Thanks, it was $5 million. You, I like your shoes." My cousin, "Thanks, they were $2,500. You, nice nose." My cousin, "Thanks, it was $20,000. I once heard a kid say he got 2 juicy drinks in his lunchbox. My cousin put up a post on Facebook complaining that since she, her son and husband moved to their new neighborhood, they only ever see Bentleys, Jaguars, Range Rovers and the like driving down the streets. She was complaining that when she and her son now go on walks, they are getting bored of calling out all the same cars, and she wishes that someone would just drive a damn Toyota and make our walks interesting. This may never reach top of comments, but I have a friend who's overly modest of how rich he is. Not exactly what you guys were looking for, but I'll share. His father's the CFO of a multi-million-dollar advertising corporation and is the nicest guy in the world. They held Yamaha as a client for 20 years, if that gives a good idea of how well off they were. Lives in a giant house in the nicest part of Orange County, 3 stories. And he and his brother both got the newest line Dodge Chargers when they both turned 16. Not to mention, they go to Hawaii and own homes on the main island. To add it all up, they just happen to be personal family friends with the lead singer of One Republic, so I've been told. So, he never talks of his wealth, but always treats us out to hockey games, season tickets to the Lakers games, and whatnot. One day, we're all hanging out at my house one day and we're talking about the housing industry. We mention his house and crack a few jokes about how nice it is and we would sell our families to live there. He says, "Oh come on guys, my family's not rich." His dad calls him 3 minutes later and on speakerphone we hear, "Hey son, just got the new 2013 5 Series BMW for you, Mom and Emmy. Bring your friends to test it out." Silence. Well doubt maybe we have a little money to spend. A friend paid for dinner the other night saying I'm about to drop $250 to cover everyone's tabs, loudly and repeatedly. He then yelled, "This bill is nothing to me. I just got a huge check from my company. I ducking love being rich." He is also on Reddit and follows my comments. So now he knows that we all know. Edit. I'd write down his username for you all, but I forgot my pen. Man, this sucks. My mum only got me the less than less expensive Lamborghini model more than instead of the less than more expensive Lamborghini model more than a 16-year-old male whose dad raced horses where I waited tables. Although I did get a $100 tip for getting his dad a cup of coffee and him a Monster. My ex is a very successful lawyer with his own firm. After I would cook dinner for us, we would sit at the large dining room table and he would make a point to sit at the opposite end, 12 ft. away. I would comment about it saying I wish he would sit closer while just the two of us ate. He would reply, "You obviously wouldn't understand, but this is how rich people eat." He also left price tags on everything he would purchase for his house, face up, so everyone could see his ugly $12,000 lamp. From my experience, people that actually have money or come from money do not talk about it. It's those with fleeting wealth that brag. This kid in my high school got a Porsche 911 the day he got his permit. He was chauffeured to school in it every day for the next 6 months by his personal driver. When he got his license, he drove it for like 3 months and then complained about having to downgrade to a BMW M5 because it handled snow better. Full stop. Was at a fancy bar. Maybe I was too blue collar for the crowd. Whatever. Having a good time with my friends. When we were talking cars and I pronounced the make Jaguar, Doucher bag on the next stool takes the time to lean over and say it's pronounced Jaguar. Friends were quiet. They knew me. Turned to the duck and said, "I don't think I give a shit." Snickers abound. Continued having my good time. Without a doubt, this guy, he ties $4,000 to the end of a balloon and lets it go, just because he can. Reading this thread I'm getting a better understanding of why history is dotted with incidents of very poor people brutally murdering very rich people. I used to help tutor a self-described rich kid. One time he had just purchased a new car. I believe it was an Audi something or other. We were out for drinks with my other friend, who was a corporate lawyer. My lawyer friend was by no means poor, so the chat with the Audi made the mistake of rubbing it in my face that he had a new car. He said something like, "Well, if you keep tutoring successful people like me, maybe one day you too could have something nice." My lawyer buddy just started laughing. He then said, "Get ducked, you itty mama's boy. My dad owns the dealership you got that car from. It's financed. Unlike my Escalade which I paid for in cash. Maybe if you keep studying, one day you won't have monthly payments, like a ducking commoner." I guess my lawyer friend was sticking up for me. It's the thought that counts. I went to a bar at school with my fiancée and some friends. We sat near a guy and a girl on a first date. The girl, on numerous occasions, actually complained about various vacations she went on with her family. Like the guy would mention something, she would bring up how something similar happened when she went to X, and then would make a negative comment about the trip or the location. I could hear most of this because she was so ducking loud. By the time we left, the guy was visibly checking other girls out and genuinely not listening to her at all. I never wear the same socks twice. Saw a white boy at a movie theater with some skanky looking girl that he was trying to impress. Walks up and orders a $7 popcorn. Hands the lady a $100 bill. She just looks at him and says, "You have anything smaller?" He pauses for a sec and says, "Yeah, I guess," and proceeds to hand her one of the tens in his wallet. Just a few weeks ago, one of my friends posted that he bought a horse to go along with the amount of property he has. Now he is posting about how the horse has gas, grazing too much, and he is scared to try to go near it. I'm about ready to call animal control anonymously, fearing that it is being neglected by a grown man that wanted a pony and got one. I used to bounce at a bar on Sunset BL here in LA. My friends took me out clubbing on one of my nights off. I had a day job too. We went to a bar on Sunset right next door to the bar I worked at. I was friendly with their bouncers and had helped them out a couple of nights when they needed help. The owner was a cool old vet and was going to let everyone in for free. As this is going on, a limo pulls up and let's just say some Middle Eastern douchebags start pushing my friends out of the way. These guys were drunk as hell and talking trash to anyone who got in their way. They were the security and friends for the knucklehead, now telling my friends to, and I quote, "Get out of my way, you stupid Americans." Now I was in the service, and so were most of my friends. The owner of the bar looks me straight in the eye and says, "Remove this trash for me, will ya?" The looks on their faces was priceless. These guys were used to pushing people around. It wasn't pretty for them. We walked into the bar, drank for free in the VIP with the owner, and when the cops got there they went to jail. Best night ever. PS. These same guys also tried to get into the bar I worked at a couple months later. My boss, who I told the whole story to, was standing next to me when these guys pulled the same at walking up to the front door. I just leaned over to my boss and said, "It's them." He started laughing and told them we were full up. The whole time we were letting people in the club. The guy starts throwing a hissy fit. My boss said, "That's right. We got enough douchebags in there already." All their faces dropped. Never saw them again. I saw the guy who made a small arcade in his garage with his father, and so this rich arsehole rubbed it in by one-upping him with an arcade basement. Nearly 3x the games. Completely furnished with a bar and alcohol. Bragging in a snooty way. A kid I knew really wanted a PS2, and there was this rich kid who knew this and bought 2 PS2s and smashed one in front of the kid who had wanted one. On my first date, my now ex told me that his past girlfriends loved bragging about how rich he was. He was indeed rich, but a cheating arsehole who's not worth a penny. My ex-roommate's parents are millionaires. The wife is an alcoholic biologist, and the husband is a pill-popping doctor that's been banned from practicing at our local hospital. So he runs a private practice out of his house. My roommate would flaunt the money by spending hundreds a night at the strip club on drinks, etc. For her 20th birthday, her parents got her lap band surgery and constantly bragged about it. I've got more Mercedes-Benzes than a Hitler motorcade. My mom told me that when we moved to America from the Philippines, I was too and hard of hearing. She met her friend at a mall once and hit it off well as friends. Then that woman hired my mom to babysit her 2 kids, and she'd pay her because we were literally that poor. My dad was a student at the time, working low-paying jobs and struggling to make ends meet. Anyways, my mom said that woman bragged every day about what she bought the other day, how much it cost. Every time my mom and I comes over, she'd show her all the nice things she had, and we were living in a tiny apartment. My mom wanted Asian food, but they were too expensive, but still made us a full dinner every night and took care of me and my dad. This woman and my mom are still friends to this day, but that woman stopped talking about her money since her son got leukemia. Her husband injured his back and is forced to retire early. Her daughter is doing alright, but doing what her mom used to do, showing off her Michael Kors bags, fancy blings, and such. I look at all my mom's friends and I know that they're all richer than my family, but my family is kicking ass, making sure I'm successful in college. Already going into my 4th year bachelor's program in criminal justice, while my mom's friends' kids are taking CNA classes at their local community college. They all used to look down on me because I was hard of hearing and wore hearing aid and we were poorer than them. It was hard watching them brag to my mom. A friend overheard the following in a Dallas bar after her friend turned down some frat boys. "Doesn't she know my trust fund is bigger than her clit? I'll take the most expensive thing on the menu." My friend asks another friend why does he always carry so much cash on him, over $2,000 on a random Thursday night, to which he replied, "You never know when you'll have to buy a car." Yes, the guy was dead. When I was in boot, a little over 4 years ago now, we had this guy who came from a rich family. During the first weekend, we were cleaning the barracks that we had just moved into. It was an all-day thing because the barracks had been unoccupied and was all full of dust. Plus we were brand new boots, so we were moving slow for military standards. I watched this 4th-flusher walk around the barracks with a bottle of Simple Green and approach every group of guys and ask them, do you know what an H3 is? Do you like them? My parents bought me one before I shipped. It has this feature, that feature. Guy would not stop talking about H3s until every member of the company had made a positive comment. Slept 3 feet from the guy for 8 weeks and all I knew about him was his name, where he was from and everything he owned. I thought he was just being chode at the time. But looking back, I think it was his way of adjusting to the equality that gets forced on you when you get introduced to how ranks work. Saw him in the fleet really briefly 3 years ago. He was cleaning the building that we were in when they advanced me. My first post. Being a medic in the military, I was sent down to San Antonio, Texas for training after I finished basic training. Our 8, advanced individual training, is one of the longest in the army, about 5 months, and we have a lot of dropouts. So, what I'm trying to say is, it was considered hard to graduate. My buddies and I decided to seize the giddiness we were feeling our last day and went to a somewhat pricey steakhouse. The total came to about $800.00 between the 4 of us. We had already blown most of our money on plane tickets and gear, so we're freaking out. After we got the check, I walked outside to smoke a cigarette and ponder what the fastest escape route was, hoping we could blend in with the thousands of other military guys walking around. That's when I heard this loud as duck roar behind me, and know it, this beautiful Maserati pulls up into the parking lot. If my pants weren't tight enough at this point, this smoking hot blonde gets out of the passenger seat. I turn to the guy who was driving, young dude, and say, that is an awesome ride. Know it. Without even looking in my direction, he says, which one? So at this point I'm thinking, this dude's a ducking D. Yet, with a gorgeous blonde in the baddest car, you can afford to be whatever you want, right? Anyway, finished my smoke, walked back in, and we tried for the next hour to stall paying. Finally, when my buddy pulled his wallet out, the server said it was already taken care of, along with the tip. I instantly looked across the restaurant at the guy. He gave me a thumbs up. I hope to God 100 V's found his crotch that night. I was getting quite serious with an extremely rich man that I was dating. His parents did not like me because I didn't come from money and often referred to me as his assistant. I corrected them every single time and said no, he doesn't pay me. I'm his girlfriend. His father came back one time and said I wasn't pretty enough to be his girlfriend and that I should stop deluding myself. After 5 years of dating, he proposed. We shared the good news with his parents. His mother said she wasn't going to speak to him again and that I wasn't welcomed in her home. My fiance's father had the nerve to offer me money to get away from his son and never speak to him again. He flashed several thousand in front of me and said something to the effect of, this is what you're worth. Now get out of our lives. I paused for a moment and then took the money. My fiance and I are getting married the end of next month. I donated the money the father gave me and mailed him a letter thanking him for his very charitable donation. I bet smoke was coming out of his ears when he got the letter. I also let him know that whether rich or poor, being a good person is what is most important in life. And no, we did not mail him an invite. I have a friend who I consider to come from an affluent family, and he judges people on how big their house is, or if he can't see that, how expensive their shoes are. So's parent mentioned her and her BF were going to get a bigger plane so she can fly and visit us when we move across the state for school. So and I will be living extremely meager, as usual. It's whatever, in an apartment or mobile home, and this itch is talking about airplanes. She also told us to enjoy the carefree college life. We both work full time and so has to take out loans for school because he doesn't qualify for financial aid and his parents don't contribute. It's only going to get worse when we transfer for grad school. She also talked down on So's cousin who had to live modestly to put himself through engineering school. I'm embarrassed for her to see our place now and after we move. I wonder what she thinks. Some people just have no grasp on reality. That picture of Drake at a club where he has a box of bills and keep grabbing packs of them to make it rain. I saw someone burn money in a bonfire. There's a Swedish thing called vaska, to put something in the sink, which is popular amongst semi-rich kids. Basically they order 2 of the same champagne hamburger whatever and ask the staff to pour one in the sink. I knew a girl in primary school who said her dad was so rich that she'd be at Eton, but her mum said she should mix with normal people and go to a state school. She threw a tantrum when I called her out on it because her dad worked for the council. B. Eton is a secondary school and C. Eton is a boys' school. I have an acquaintance whose family is loaded. This family went through a rough time when their acquaintance's brother, died in a plane crash. It was through a university because his brother had been going to school to become a pilot. A few years later, my acquaintance and I meet up at a bar and he starts telling me about how his family is trying to sue the university because the guy died while in their program. And he was happy about it. It seemed to me like he had forgotten his brother had died and just cared about getting more wealthy. This was all so ducked up to me. I can't look at this kid the same way, which is why I say he's an acquaintance. The son of the governor came into my retail store complaining of a broken dishwasher. I checked to see when he purchased it. He'd owned it for 2 years. I told him there was nothing that I could do other than help him get it serviced or sell him a new one. Both options would leave him without a dishwasher for more than a week. He snapped at me and told me how he couldn't do dishes manually because his time was worth more than that. He proceeded to tell me how much he makes per hour and asked if I was going to come do his dishes. I said, no, but if you make that much you should be able to afford some paper plates. Dealing craps to Phil Ivey, poker legend. He got flown in by a private jet with an entourage of teenagers, saying, if they can't be on the gaming floor, I'll take my 5 million elsewhere. He bought in with a 5 million marker and then played about 250,000 across on the craps game. He'd have one of the kids shoot the dice for him, and when they'd crap out, he'd yell, see what you just did? You just made me lose more money than you'll ever make in your life. How does that make you feel? You just lost me $250,000. How do you feel about that? The kids looked down each time without answering. I had small back and forth with him over a technical term regarding the game. Hold the ducking table up. Stop the game. I want to see the casino manager, he said. The casino manager walked over to him and he whispered in her ear. She walked away and everyone I worked with gave me death stares, especially the other managers around. I was terrified. A while later another dealer walks up and replaces the dealer across from me. Then Phil Ivey says, now the only people here are guys who like pussy. No more faggots on this table. Then he winked at me. The dealer he had taken off the game was really gay, and I spoke with him shortly after. He was completely humiliated. He joked about suing Ivy, but said he'd never sink so low. Full stop.